just like a major aspect of business is build a better mousetrap, build a better mousetrap, build a better mousetrap than the next person's mousetrap that they're trying to sell. I've had a lot of scientists in the military and outside the military come up to me and be like, Nyan, how come some of your postulates or theories are so much better than anything we've all learned in the textbooks? Or how come some of your theories and hypotheses are so phenomenally better than the other scientists? And I have a really easy, straightforward answer to that. I put in hundreds and hundreds of hours of thought into coming up with them. So, for example, the second law of motion, Newton's force equation, philosophically answers the question, well, what is something? Well, there's a bunch of different ways to define something on the surface of, let's say, a planet. One of the ways is by its weight or by its force pounds, also known as newtons. And and then the weight of something on the surface of a planet, for example, its force, which is a synonym for weight, is equal to its mass, and m also, its second most common association after mass is multiple fission, cells that keep replicating themselves. And then so that's basically also simultaneously the definition of multiple fission times the acceleration or gravity acting upon itself. And so, okay, that's all great. How does that help my other scientist friends? Because ultimately, again, a lot of times when I talk to other scientists and really break down how I come up with some of the theories to help them take their work to the next level, and hopefully my daughters, they go from viewing me as like a magical Einstein type character to almost pitying me. They're like, well, geez, if I put 500 or 1,000 hours of work into thinking about this, I could have come up with something better than the textbook too. Right. So it's what I like doing. So I'm comparing and contrasting page 89 of this 500-page business plan / book to page 5. And so on page 5, I was studying my work for about half an hour, and I thought, what is slightly unclear to another scientist? And I realized that action, I could put action / outcome. So basically, like innate desires, and for example, a mammal, basically like builds up into tension or intention, and then that intention ultimately turns into an action outcome. And so this is a description of hive dynamics, because all my scientist friends know that Nyan is the expert epidemiologist. He understands hive mechanics better than anyone else. And he also understands engineering. And they also know that I have a decent grasp of physics. They also know that my understanding of chemistry is not quite on par with the rest of the scientists. So I get all kinds of feedback too. They're like, Nyan's better than all of us as a scientist in these ways. In these 2 ways, he's on par. And in these 7 ways, he's below par. You know, he's not as good as the other scientists. So since my field is hive mechanics or epidemiology, I'm constantly obsessing about how to build better theories. So a lot of time, one thing other scientists notice too is that the more they study what I've done, for example, I'm comparing and contrasting page 5 with page 89, and I'm looking for any tiny little nuance that another scientist could get confused on, or how I could make my work more hyper-intuitive. And so, for example, this one tries to graduate my work to another level, where basically it also tries to, so if a scientist studies this enough for, like, let's say 30 hours, they'll be like, oh, wow, Nyan's totally incorporated the whole, like, which came first, the chicken or the egg paradox. You know, a mammal has a certain weight, sub 1, and then here's the mechanics of how it maybe came into existence, of hive mechanics, sub 1, and then boom, you know, which came first, 1 or 2 or more? Well, certainly 2 or more. So then another scientist would look at this and be like, okay, so basically Nyan's doing the whole drawing the line in the sand, what our ancestors first did to come up with any kind of symbols or to even invent mathematics or anything else. They literally at some point had to be like, you know what? Somebody has to come up with a symbol at some point, and basically it works out to drawing a line in the sand, and that the reason for that line drawn in the sand is for relative analysis. That way you can be like, okay, how is one other thing different or similar to that thing that we just described or used a symbol to describe, or we drew our line in the sand. That way we can start comparing and contrast, two or more things versus nothing. And so yeah, a lot of times when more and more scientists study my work more and more, they're more and more shocked and impressed. And it's not that I'm so smart, it's just I put in so many more hours than they have. And I've thought about it, like, how does this help out people researching cancer? How does this help out with the obesity epidemic? How does this help out chemists? How does this help out physicists? How does this help out biologists? How does this help out astrophysicists? How is this unifying their understanding into some sort of framework where they can easily communicate with each other and come up with way more advanced understandings using this, what I'm working on, versus anything our ancient ancestors have figured out before? Because like Newton and Einstein and Darwin, they weren't as smart as me, but they're pretty smart people. And it's not like the reason I'm so much smarter than Einstein or Darwin or Newton is that I'm so smart. I have the internet, I can reference things, I can cross-reference things, and they couldn't do those things. So basically it'd be like somebody in the Stone Age going against even a child with the internet. I mean, it'd be a total joke. So basically all of us can be phenomenally more productive than the scientists of the past. And because we've also witnessed things like the moon landings and other things, we can come up with theories that are based in this time period and not on the ignorance of past time periods. So, yeah. I'll go more into this later.